Dear friends, good morning. BSHF congratulates all awardees on the occasion of celebration of Indian Council of Agriculture Research Day yesterday, the 16th July 2022. It is my proud privilege to welcome you on behalf of Professor Brahm Singh Horticulture Foundation, BSHF, a not for profit organization, and my own behalf to this 5H webinar series named as Future Indian Horticulture. BSHF is thankful to NIPA, New India Publishing Agency, New Delhi, for sponsoring this webinar series. I am happy to welcome co-organizers Dr. Shailendra Rajan, former Director ICR, Central Institute of Subtropical Horticulture, Lucknow, and Dr. Poppy Bora, Senior Scientist, Assam Agriculture University, Jorat, in place of Dr. Peetam Kalia, who is traveling back to India at present. As per the title of the series, the emphasis in this series of webinars is on future horticulture. And future horticulture has to be science and technology driven. New and unknown commodities in horticulture will surface not only as alternatives or novelties, but also to meet the emerging requirements of the society. Edible flowers are one of such commodities. Flowers as food is fascinating. Besides fragrance, offerings, decorations, and addition to personality. Indian horticulture, which is performing in an exemplary and encouraging manner, can't afford to ignore the path of science and technology to excel in Indian agriculture. Indian future floriculture also has to be technology and science driven with many fruitful surprises. Flowers are becoming part of many regional cuisines. They can be eaten as vegetables and salads. They can be used for fragrance, flavor, and garnishing. They have both nutrition and medicinal value. But the safety in consuming them is important issue. Dr. K.V. Prasad will enrich our knowledge on this subject further, the edible flowers. Friends, questions can be raised in comment or chat box, which will be answered after the talk or later. Now I request Dr. Poppy Bora to introduce the speaker. Dr. Poppy Bora, please.
Good morning to all of you. Take Dr. Singh Sir, Founder Chairman BSHF, today's invited speaker Dr. KV Prasad, all the organizing team members, and our viewers. Today we have with us one very eminent speaker, Dr. KV Prasad, with a very interesting topic, edible flowers. Friends, for your information, Dr. KV Prasad Director, ICAR Directorate of Floricultural Research, in fact needs no introduction. Dr. K.P. Prasad is one of the architects of modern ornamental horticultural research in India and has distinguished academic career. Born in 1966, Dr. K.V. Prasad completed his graduation and post-graduation from Andhra Pradesh Agricultural University and doctorate in horticulture from IIRA New Delhi. He started his professional journey in the IIHR Bengaluru and worked there for 6 years. Afterwards, he moved to IIRI where he served as senior scientist, principal scientist, and as the first professor of the newly created discipline floriculture and landscaping. He got selected as a director, ICAR Director of Floricultural Research, Pune, during October 2015. As a researcher, he has immense contribution towards Indian floriculture industry, and I'd like to highlight a few. He was instrumental in developing seven chrysanthemum varieties, six rose varieties at IRI, and a unique fragrant anthurium while serving at IHR Bengaluru. He had also developed dust test methodology for rose and chrysanthemum for the first time in the country to offer plant breeders' rights. He also is credited with the development of technology for in vitro direct regeneration from late release of novel mutants and technology for high frequency induction of novel mutants, a protocol for establishing the genetic relatedness among the radiation induced chrysanthemum and rose mutants and their parents, standardized with molecular markers. Dr. Prasad is also involved in the development of protocol for induction of in vitro nutraceutical and anthocyanin pigments from rose, chrysanthemum, and carotenoid pigments from calendula for the first time in our country as a chairman of MSc and PhD students. Besides being an astute leader in floricultural research, Dr. K.B. Prasad is also actively involved in postgraduate teaching and he has guided 4 MSc and seven PhD students. He had developed three new courses and was involved in and development of curriculum for two more courses, two menu-driven e-manuals on breeding of ornamental plants and plant tissue culture. As member of the ICR BSMA, he is instrumental in revising the curriculum of MSc and PhD courses. In order to have crop-specific focus, he organized the Year of Chrysanthemum during 2010. So he is actively involved in the preparation of the EFC memo of the Director of Floriculture Research Pune and the detailed project report for the establishment of IRI Jharkhand. He contributed significantly as a member secretary of subgroup on floriculture and medicinal aromatic crops, Government of India during 2007 to 2012, and also was a member secretary of a task force on floriculture constituted by PPVFRA Authority of Government of India. Under his astute leadership as the director of ICR-DFR Pune, new research has been initiated in the area of nutraceuticals, virus diagnostic tools, molecular characterization, then gadgets and tools for floricultural crops, vertical farming, new potting media that has been already introduced at ICR-DFR. Dr. Prasad's outstanding contribution in the field of ornamental horticulture got recognition in terms of different prestigious awards, like Dr. B.P. Pal Gold Medal for the year 2009 from IRI, Gold Medal in Floriculture from Horticultural Society of India in 2012, and Lotus Puraskar from Indian Society of Ornamental Horticulture. He is a fellow of Horticultural Society of India, Indian Society of Ornamental Horticulture, and Confederation of Horticulture Association of India. We did this brief contribution of his brief introduction of his robust contribution. I request Dr. K.P. Prasad sir to start his presentation. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bora. Dr. K.V. Prasad, please.
Thank you, Dr. Papi Bora. Good morning to each one of you. Respected Chairman of BSHF, Padma Shri Dr. Prem Singh sir, Dr. Shailendra Rajan, distinguished former director of CASH Lucknow, Dr. Papi Bora, Shivangi, all the distinguished participants of today's webinar, student friends, ladies and gentlemen. I have great pleasure to present before you a topic on edible flowers. Permit me to share my screen. I hope the slides are visible.
Yes, visible.
I sincerely believe that floriculture should foray into food chain. Then only we will get the recognition that is due for the floriculture sector over and above the contributions that we make in terms of bringing beauty and quality in terms of our lives. When we talk of food, food is any substance which is consumed to provide nutritional support for an organism. It can be of a plant, animal, or fungal origin and should essentially contain all the nutrients and carbohydrates, fats, proteins, vitamins, and minerals. Common belief about the food is that it must satiate our bellies. That's why the edible flowers, though the knowledge is there in India for quite a long time, flowers are not part of the food chain primarily because of this belief that they won't satiate our bellies as it happens in fruits and vegetables, or for that matter, all the cereals and pulses. Therefore, they are not widely used or preferred. Owing to another factor is the strong aroma that they possess. Many of the flowers have a distinct aroma, which is liked by many, which is not liked by some people. For centuries, edible flowers have been integral part of human nutrition. It was well documented even in the oldest of old documents. The earliest mention that was known or seen physically was during 140 BC, where the dandelion flowers, which are part of the Compositae family, they were documented in Old Testaments of the Bible. And the Chinese were the prolific users of flowers in terms of their cuisine way back in 3000 BC. The Romans also used edible flowers, mostly the pinks, violets, and roses, in number of dishes along with the sauces made of lavender. The gardeners and the cooks, they came together to develop so many cuisines across the world by using marigold and then orange blossoms across the world. Oriental dishes, most then the Romans, they used many of the flower parts in the part of as part of the food that they consumed. Italians and Hispanicals, they used squashes from the blooms, and of course, in India, we have a strong tradition of using the rose petals for making gulkan, which is widely used as a sweetening dish and also as a for medicinal purpose. France has developed a unique liquor by name Carteuse, which is a green-colored liquor, and one of the secret ingredients that they have used for making this wine or the liquor is the carnation petals. So there are a number of such kind of documentations across the world where it is documented that the flowers are extensively used for many purposes. And it is also like documented and it is even practiced in a wide range of cuisines across Asian, European, East Indian, English, Middle Eastern, and Mediterranean cuisines in various forms. This is because of the renewed interest in edible flowers for their taste, color, and the fragrance that they bring in along with them when you make a dish out of them. And many herbal flowers have the same flower as that of their leaves. Therefore, number of flower crops, their leaves are also extensively used. For instance, chrysanthemum, then geranium, etc. They are also used in the form of fresh as well as dried flowers. And this renewed interest in case of flowers is primarily because they contribute 0 calories, which is one of the most sought after character in terms of the health conscious population, where people count the number of calories that they are consuming whenever they consume a dish. So these are the flowers are the best candidates in order to incorporate in weight reduction programs whenever we think of such kind of interventions. So flowers are best consumed as salads, garnishes, teas, floral syrups, and preserves, which I'm going to highlight one by one. It is important that we should consume those flowers which are documented to be edible. ITKs, that are indigenous technical knowledge, that is documented by our ancestors, will be handy because they have started this as an experiment and they could document many of the benefits of these flowers, not necessarily scientifically, but they know that which one to be consumed and which one should not be consumed. And it is equally important to identify the poisonous flowers. There are a number of the plants which produce flowers which are highly poisonous, which are well documented in the literature. And these flowers need to be introduced slowly to the diet to rule out allergies, because some of the people are allergic to the pollen that is carried by the flowers, and also some of the metabolites that they carry. So captive cultivation is preferred over collection from the wild. Wildflowers, many people collect and then consume in most of the tribal communities, but it is always risky because we do not know their allergic reaction and also the poisonous nature of the metabolites that they possess. Therefore, we need to have a captive cultivation, and therefore you can have the control over the usage of the pesticides and also the other chemicals that we use for the cultivation. When we consume these flowers, it is important that we thoroughly wash, because to wash out the dust and the insects which are harbored in the inner layers of or in inner orals of the flowers. And one more caution that we all should practice is that we should not use the animal manure that is not completely decomposed, primarily because to prevent any zoonotic diseases. And it is also important to test all the floral parts if they are edible or not. For instance, the sepals and the discs that contain the ray and disc florates may be bitter. We also see this particular phenomena when you consume the rose petals along with the inner parts of the other orals. Petals and florals are florates are the most ideal. Therefore, in most of the cases, these are extensively used by removing all other parts like sepals and then anthers and ovaries. As I mentioned, we need to avoid anthers and pollen to prevent allergies, and they need to be harvested at the right time. Otherwise, the uniqueness or the benefits of these flowers are not accrued to the extent that is expected. There are a number of examples of edible flowers. On the left, the list says about the European flowers, which are used extensively for their consumption across the world. And on the right-hand side, I have shown you all the edible flowers which are documented in the literature, and then what are the parts which are extensively used for the consumption. Cornflower, then marigold, then some of the orchids, lavender are very widely used. On the other hand, we have hibiscus, hemerocalis, impatiens, lavandula, then matricaria, pelargoniums. These are also consumed in different parts of the country for their beneficial effect on that they can bring about in our nutrition. And most of these floral parts are best preserved either as dried or frozen or fixed in vinegar or canned in sugar, or made in the form of jams and jellies. And as I mentioned, they are also used for making wine and other liquor. And some of these edible flowers, if you look at their nutrition, they are rich in protein. For instance, dianthus and chrysanthemums, they are rich in protein. When you look at the data, of course, this is, it may differ from region to region because of the agroclimatic conditions and also the agrotechnology that we adopt, but inherently that they are rich in protein in case of carnations, that is dianthus and chrysanthemums. And they are also powerhouses of nutrients. Dianthus, for instance, is rich in phosphorus. Tagetes is rich in potassium. Then viola flowers are rich in calcium. Impatiens are rich in magnesium. And fuchsia flowers are rich in sodium. And in case of minor elements, like dianthus is rich in iron, Tagetes is zinc, then violas are rich in manganese, antirrhinum flowers are rich in molybdenum, and dianthus flowers are rich in copper. So these flowers are extensively used for making a number of other delicacies, which are highlighted in these slides on the left-hand side corner, where they are used in the mocktails. They are used on the for the dressing of the desserts, and also to make as part of the ice creams. And this is a fruit punch with again made with flowers. And if you look at their the contribution in terms of qualitative contributions in terms of total phenol content, which is phenols are and they have a very high antioxidant property, which is in dianthus is rich in polyphenols. Then impatiens are rich in terms of their antioxidant capacity, and the total flavonoid content is more in case of dianthus. Out of some 10 flowers that are tested in different parts of the country. So in combination with fruits and vegetables, flowers provide a wholesome food for all ages. If you combine like this, a cacophony of all the foods together will bring you a wholesome and complete nutrition that is required for us. And these flowers are also rich in terms of some of the vitamins and other medicinal properties in terms of marigold, nasturtium, portulaca, and rose. They are rich in vitamin C. For your information, rose hips, that is the fruit of hips, is one of the richest sources of vitamin C, which is extensively extracted and then marketed as rose hip vitamin C. And dandelions, which I mentioned previously, that which is documented even the time of Bible, it is rich in vitamin A and C. Calendula is very popular among the homeopathic medicines for its medicinal properties. Many of the eye drops contain calendula extracts, which takes care of the eye-related problems. It is good in digestion, minimizing the fever, and improves the immunity. Improving the immunity is one of the traits that these antioxidants or the pigments that all the plants possess. It got the due recognition during this pandemic time. We are all popping anything which is documented to be an immunity booster all through these 2 years of these testing times. So these flowers are also rich source of the pigments, which I'm going to talk to you as we go by. They are the very good nutraceutical properties along with their beauty and the attraction that they provide. Poppies and chamomile and lavender, they ease stress and aid in sleep. So they are the part of all the formulations that are made for aromatherapy in nowadays combinations. Goldenrod, which is used extensively as a filler, relieves allergies, urinary tract infection, and aids in digestion. Hibiscus, which is extensively used as a floral preserve or jam and jelly, is very good to clear the cholesterol deposits and also correcting the liver disorders. Violas are good for anti-inflammatory, for their anti-inflammatory properties. They reduce fevers and colds and also aid in reducing the respiratory ailments. So flowers bring about a qualitative change in the food that we consume. So there is a need to enrich the foods through the flowers in order to get the flavors and the colors, which I'm going to talk to you in terms of very specifically about the color and the flavors that they can bring to the food. I will be focusing on food colors. The present day food industry uses a lot of artificial colors, which are most of the times laced with the heavy metals containing chromium and lead, which you all know that they are very toxic in terms of they act as slow poisons over a period of time. And some of you must have seen these kind of news clippings that across the world where they have documented and then they have considered banning of all the artificial colors which contain these heavy metals. So the natural choice that we all have is to bring the natural colors which are available in the plant kingdom. Chlorophylls, the green pigment that is there in almost all the plants that we see, they are one of the major pigment families, followed by anthocyanins, then carotenoids and betalains. These are the major pigments which are documented. Besides, there are other pigments like curcuma, and then others which are documented in some of the minor crops. These pigments are, as I mentioned, these are the major class of pigments like flavonoids, carotenoids, and beta lines. And they have so many family members. For instance, the pelargonidin, cyanidin, delphinidin, and peonidin for anthocyanins, and petunidin, malvidin, then epigeninin, and many like hesperidin, lycopene, beta carotene. All these are the subfamily members of these major classes of the pigments. And these pigments, they impart a very specific color to a particular flower or a plant part that we all see and then cherish. And all these family members or the subfamily members are potential antioxidants. Each has its own antioxidant property and which targets and then minimizes the free radicals that are produced in the body. So by doing so, they impart a large number of healthy benefits for human beings. For instance, chlorophylls, they reduce blood pressure, blood sugar, then improve the brain activation. They have anti-mutagenic and anti-cancer properties. So are the anthocyanins, carotenoids, and beta lines. All these are documented extensively by clinical trials and also the in vitro, in vivo, and clinical trials, which are captured in the next slide. So these studies, which are done across the world, like starting with the in vitro cultures, followed by in vivo, then epidemiological surveys, testing, and finally the clinical testing on higher animals, including humans. They have documented, in case of anthocyanins, they correct the vision disorders, they protect neural system, they mitigate cardiovascular diseases and also fight the cancers. Beta lines, again, one more class of pigments which are extensively found in bougainvillea and other chenopodium and irisin. These are the and beetroot. These are the crops which contain the beta lines. They are extensively used for mitigating the cancer in some of the organs. Carotenoids, again, they have a photooxidative. They minimize photooxidative damage and also improve the immune system, cardiovascular diseases, and address some of the cancers. As I mentioned, it is primarily by fighting the free radicals that are produced in the body due to the metabolic activities that the body conducts every second. So these free radicals need to be effectively neutralized. So once you attain 50 years of age and you visit a doctor, normally the doctor advocates some antioxidant in the form of mostly zinc. Zinc tablets are frequently prescribed once you cross 50. This is primarily because this is an antioxidant, which is a nutrition-based kind of an address for the problem. So once you use these free radical scavengers in the form of the available pigments which are there in the plant system, you can address them through natural means. So rose is very rich in case of anthocyanidins, mostly the cyanidin 3,5-glucoside or the pelargonidin, cyanidin, delphinidin, and peonidin. Delphinidin was not there in roses, but it was introduced through genetic engineering in one of the varieties called as applause. That's why I mentioned that the pigment is now available even in rose genus. The pelargonidin is again from pelargonin, which is an orange colored pigment. And orchids are rich in anthocyanins, anthocyanthins, and other plastic pigments depending on the color. And chrysanthemums are rich in carotenoids, anthocyanins, and other flavonoids. Gladiolus is rich in, again, anthocyanins and anthocyanthins. Liliums are rich in anthocyanins and carotenoids. Yellow ones are rich in beta carotene, cryptozanthine, and zeaxanthin. Zerberas, again, rich in anthocyanidin and other hydroxyl forms of the carotenoids. So is the case. In case of anthuriums, it is anthocyanins. Marigold is good in lutein and zeaxanthin. Calendula is again lutein and zeaxanthin. And these pigments are commercially exploited, which I'm going to talk to you in some more after some more time. And this particular understanding of availability of the pigments and their nutraceutical abilities in the plant for the human beings, our interest when we are working on developing the mutants in case of chrysanthemum, a simple irradiation of a particular dosage in a particular variety called as Taichin Queen has resulted in a number of alterations or the modifications that you see. We could get about 18 different kinds of mutants with altered color and altered flower form. Our interest grew when we saw this particular phenomena of a simple radiation can bring about so much of changes in the biosynthetic pathway of the pigments. An orange colored parent gave rise to a number of colors like this. That means this particular intervention by radiation has triggered a particular step of biosynthetic pathway in one particular mutant to give rise to a different color, which I have documented. The subfamily members are getting expressed in each mutant. And as I mentioned, and each subfamily member has its own antioxidant properties, which we can isolate them by in vitro expression of these pigments in the test tubes. The flowers produce these pigments naturally, but it is restricted by the season. If you are keen to isolate these pigments, we can do it only once in a year or twice in a year in some of the flowers which flower twice in a year. But if you can introduce them in the in vitro conditions, you can overcome these seasonal barriers, and you can also express these pigments very selectively. As I mentioned, each color is imparted by a particular subfamily member of the pigment, and you can in a purified form you can express and without any interference from the other metabolites. So this is the advantage of going through these in vitro cultures. And based on this hypothesis that we started working on developing these pigments in vitro conditions. So the first question that arose is that we all know that these pigments are thermolabile and photolabile to a great extent. But these can be very well used in the cold processed desserts in order to utilize these colors and also deliver them without any thermal or photo damage to these pigments. What we did is we selected the crops which are already documented to be safe for consumption. For instance, rose is extensively used as gulkand in our ancient literature, or even today that we consume a lot of gulkand. So we chose the first crop as the rose. What we initially did is we took some of the varieties of different colors, and then we did the histological studies to understand as to where these pigments are located. If you see here in this particular variety called as Shailesh Mukherjee, it is the pigments are available on the both and upper and lower surface of the petal sections, both abaxial and adaxial side. And in some of the varieties, for instance, in case of Dulhan, these pigments are almost everywhere across all the layers of the petals. And it is in case of Manmatha, it is only on upper and lower, and the middle layers are not having any kind of pigmentation. So is the case with the Abhishek, which has only on the upper surface, not on the lower surface. And Hasina, this variety has more or less in almost all the layers. And again, only on the upper and lower surface in case of Raja Surinder Singh of Nalagarh, a variety which is orange in color. And in Surkha, again, it is distributed across all the layers. This particular, the basic work gave us to identify those varieties which have more amount of pigments in their plant parts or in the flowers. We chose this variety Pusa Ajay based on its the expression of the pigments in almost all the plant parts that it produces, both the leaves, stems, the sepals, and of course the petals. Then we have understood from the literature that there are a number of strategies that one can adopt in order to induce the osmotic stress that is required by the cells to produce these pigments in the in vitro conditions. Then strain improvement, that is selection and screening of the varieties that we did, as I indicated in the previous slides. We have done that basic work of selecting the varieties and then screening them for their anthocyanin content. Then we made variations in the medium in terms of nutrition, phytohormones, some of the precursors of the biosynthetic pathway that we understand from the biochemistry of the pigments, and some of the anti-metabolites. Then culture conditions in the terms of inoculum size, the pH, the temperature, light, and agitation. These are some of the factors which are related to the conditions of growing. Then specialized techniques like elicitors. There are some molecules which elicit a particular step in the biosynthetic pathway in order to selectively enhance that particular step so that the pigment gets expressed. So so is the case with the two-phase system, that is liquid and solid phase. Like that, we have tried a number of strategies which are available or adopted by a number of researchers across the world. And as we go by, it took almost 1.5 years for us to, get favorable results. Initially, we used to get the callus, which is green and mostly expressing the chlorophyll pigments, not any anthocyanin pigments. As we went into in-depth studies by incorporating the other interventions, which I have mentioned in the previous slide, then we slowly started getting the expression of the pigments across all the cultures that we have attempted, both in terms of petals, leaves, and they produce large quantities of callus. And then once you subject them to osmotic stress by increasing the sucrose concentration or by sucrosing some of the micronutrients or some of the growth regulators, then they produce the pigments in vitro, and the intensification of these pigments happens in vitro. Even the roots that are produced because of the auxin concentration that is there in the medium, these roots also, they start producing the anthocyanin pigments. So this particular strategy of ours, we have tried some number of other molecules like abscisic acid, which is a growth retardant. Again, once you put that growth retardant, it induces osmotic stress, and again, which causes the expression of the pigments in vitro. We succeeded this particular proving the hypothesis in case of roses. We wanted to work on the expression of these carotenoids in vitro conditions by choosing calendula, which is one of the annual flowers, which is grown mostly for its orange colored flowers. We have again used a similar strategy by using solid and liquid cultures in case of calendula. And once you culture them and then subject them to different nutrient concentrations by increasing the sucrose concentration or the ammonium ion concentration, the expression of the pigments happens in the calli that we grow, even in the liquid cultures. So here you can see the difference between the solid or calli and also the calli that is grown in the liquid cultures. Once you put them in the liquids, normally these calli tend to get organogenic by producing lots of roots. And these roots are also, they contain a lot of the carotenoids. By subjecting them to UV radiation, again, it is one more strategy where UV rays, again, they cause osmotic stress in the plants, which induces the formation of the pigments. We could extract them and then quantify them in terms of rows and also in carotenoids in case of calendula. And this is what I wanted to say is the proof of concept. Buoyed with the success of these two, we ventured into expressing the anthocyanin pigments in case of chrysanthemum. We again selected different colored varieties, which we it's a popular varieties across the chrysanthemum growing areas. Pusa anmol is a mutant that is generated at IRA. So is Pusa centenary, Flirt, Gulmohar, and Jayal. These are of different colors, and we strongly believe that these are the the pigments. Mostly they contain anthocyanins and carotenoids. Pusa centenary, yellow color is because of the carotenoids. We chose ray florets and leaves, and then based on the callus inducing ability and the formation of these pigments, leaf is considered to be the best explant for inducing the calli and subsequent pigmentation. if you increase the concentration of sucrose, which induces the osmotic stress, you can typically get this particular pigment expressed in vitro conditions. See is the color of Poussin mole, which is a light pink color, which gets selectively expressed in vitro conditions if you put them into different treatments. This is the influence of cobalt chloride on the expression of the in vitro pigments. And this is the effect of nickel chloride, which is one of the inducers which enhance the expression of these pigments in the in vitro cultures. Salicylic acid, again, one of the elicitants, which is used extensively for expression of these pigments and intensification of the pigments in the in vitro conditions. And this particular work again encourages us to venture into other crops like petunia. Petunia is a model crop for most of the biotechnology works. We selected about 4 or 5 varieties: Bravo Blue, Bravo Rose, and Burgundy, and Ultra Red, of different shades of anthocyanins. And we have experimented with the leaves, corolla, hypocotyle, and internodal segments. And see the beauty of the technology. From the Bravo Blue, we could selectively express this particular blue pigment in the in vitro conditions. Again, by using sucrose, higher concentrations of sucrose, higher concentrations of fructose, then glucose. This particular crop is very unique in terms of once you change the osmotic stress by simply introducing the different sucrose, different sugar molecules, they tend to produce the pigments selectively in vitro conditions. As I mentioned, the beauty of this technology is to selectively express these pigments in vitro conditions. And this particular technology will pave the way for their large-scale production of these pigments in the bioreactors. This is a prelude for intensification and then large-scale production through biotechnological means by culturing these different callus cultures in bioreactors to produce these pigments. So what I wanted to emphasize is that there is a huge potential for floriculture sector to make a qualitative change in terms of food that we consume. Just imagine if you can isolate these pigments selectively, and then purest form of these pigments are isolated and then used in the food that we consume, we can make a great difference in terms of enhancing the nutraceutical ability of the food that we consume. And this particular property of the pigments is commercially exploited by different companies by extracting this lutein, and it is marketed in the form of lutein 20 milligrams food supplement across the world. And these are available even in India. Most of the nutritional supplements that we all consume, even during the COVID time, many of the doctors, they have prescribed these nutritional supplements to consume regularly in order to get these rare antioxidants as part of our food. Lutein is one particular molecule which our body cannot synthesize. As long as we are taking healthy food when we are young, there is no problem. Lutein is the food for the retina. If the consumption of lutein is minimized over a period of time, the age-related macular degeneration, that is the age-related blindness that happens in the older population, is the problem that every household we see in our old age grandparents and great grandparents. So this particular problem can be easily mitigated if you consume lutein regularly as part of your diet or as part of your food supplementation. This particular pigment is also extensively used in the poultry industry as a part of the poultry feed to enhance the color of the egg yolk and also the color of the layer chicken. Normally, the layer chicken is pale in color, but incorporation of these pigments in the food will result in biomagnification of these pigments in the flesh as well as the egg yolk, which is accepted and used across the world. Even in India, it is part of the poultry feed. And so is the case in case of chrysanthemum flowers, which is again extensively used in most of the Oriental countries for its mostly the health benefits that they bring about. The pigments, as of now, they are being extracted from some of the rich sources like carrots, tomatoes, then blueberries and grape. But the greatest advantage that the flowers will bring about is that, if one particular crops, for instance, either rose or chrysanthemum, it will have almost all the rainbow of colors. A one particular crop which is documented to be food safe can be exploited extensively to isolate all the pigments that are required. Otherwise, you need to have one particular color from one particular crop, which is again a disadvantage. So the RHS color chart that we all regularly use contains about 18 to 96 colors. And in floriculture or in roses, you will find almost all these colors. So that is the beauty of floriculture. Therefore, as I mentioned and then highly advocate that flowers are the richest resource. And then once we start extracting these pigments and then using them in the food, this is the greatest contribution in terms of improving the quality of the food that we consume. So at DFR, we are taking this forward. As I mentioned, the previous work was done at IRA with the help of my students in our lab at IRA. This particular proof of concept, we are taking it forward by enhancing the scope of the work, by understanding what are the other pigment families that are available in a particular crop, and then assessing their antioxidant ability. Therefore, once you establish, we use them for breeding purpose as well as for the extraction of these pigments on a larger scale. So these are now being quantified in terms of how much each variety will be having in terms of chrysanthemum as well as rose, and determining their exact total flavonoid content or the carotenoid content, whatever the case may be. Then understanding the free radical scavenging activity of each of these pigments to identify which are the best candidates to be exploited, so that we can use in different value-added products. In this direction, the first step is to use them as herbal teas. We are in the process of making chrysanthemum tea, rose, and jasmine tea by exploiting this particular knowledge of using a particular variety for its capturing the pigments in the tea and also the aromas that these flowers possess. We identified the genotypes, which are good in terms of the number of petals and the fragrance and other texture properties that they have. We have dried these flowers so that the pigments are retained and also to an extent the aroma, and analyze the total phenol content, flavonoid content, anthocyanin content, and their antioxidant abilities in order to scientifically say that the rose tea is good for health. So these are some of the images of the tea that we prepared. This is as good as any green tea that we find it in the markets. The greatest advantage is that it has the pigments as well as the phenols, tannins, and then the aroma. So various treatments have given us the various concentrations of this one for a lighter tea to a darker tea. As per the preference of the consumers, these can be marketed as different like strengths of the tea. As we see in the markets that there are some teas which are called as kadak. So is the case in case of floral teas. So there is an old saying by the grandmothers. They say, more pretty colors you eat, lovelier you will be. This is based on the ITK that they had during those times. But this is scientifically proven that as we consume more number of colors, the more healthier we are. This is all about the pigments. No, the other qualitative difference that we can bring about in food, in the food chain, is the essential oils. Essential oils are used extensively for different purposes, for the fragrances, for the cosmetics, but they are also used extensively even in the food in terms of confectionery, the sweets, and many other desserts. This is the value of the exports of the essential oils in the country. India is the 6th largest producer and exporter of the essential oils from the country. The essential oils are mostly from medicinal and aromatic crops and also the floriculture crops, rose, jasmine, tuberose, and so on and so forth. These are the major essential oils which are being produced in India and exported. And all these essential oils, they contain a lot of medicinal properties in terms of they are antimicrobial, allelopathic, antioxidants, bioregulators, they have insecticidal properties, they have antifungal properties and spasmolytic properties, primarily because of the containing of monoterpenes, sesquiterpenes, aldehydes, terpenes, and alcohols. They impart this particular property, and because of this, they are also used extensively for the Ayurvedic medicines and also the other medicines which are of traditional nature. And this is primarily because of the essential oil content that they possess in terms of the percentage of concrete and absolute that they yield. And the absolutes are very expensive. An absolute of 1 kg of rose will cost you anywhere between 5 to 7 lakh rupees. So there is an enormous economic benefit that these crops will bring about, and also the qualitative change in terms of these aromas, which can be extensively used for improving the aroma of a particular dish or a dessert. The chemical constituent, if you look at, they are being deciphered like this with the help of HPLC, GCMS, and so advanced technologies. And once you have once you profile them, then these are synthesized artificially in the laboratories. See, most of the flavors and fragrances that we are consuming today are mostly synthetic in nature. Classic example is vanillin, which we all cherish in the form of vanilla ice cream or vanilla cakes. It is an orchid. The orchid pod produces this natural vanillin, and this particular vanillin, after getting deciphered, they have started synthesizing in the laboratories. India produces vanillin in the east and west coast, but it is completely exported. We are happy with the synthetic vanillin because it is very cheap. A vanilla essence bottle will cost you hardly 50 to 60 rupees. But whereas a single pod of this vanilla, that is you can see in the picture, will cost you anywhere between 250 to 500 rupees each pod, because it contains the natural vanillin. Even the ice creams which are made of synthetic one are cheaper, and the royal vanilla ice cream that is marketed by Mother Dairy will cost you double the cost of the other vanilla ice cream that you have on the shelf. So this is the qualitative change that these flowers can bring about in food in terms of their economic value and also the value to the food. And so is the case with essential oils from other crops like chrysanthemums. And based on this knowledge, what we are trying to do at DFR is to develop a profile of these essential oils in terms of their constituents, and then identify those varieties for breeding purpose. That is one strategy. And the other thing is to use them commercially for exploiting in the flavoring industry. So we have done this deciphering of these essential oils in number of varieties, and this is one example in case of Double Delight, to get an idea as to which are the varieties which are rich in a particular constituent of a particular the essential oil profile. So friends, as I mentioned in my first slide, until unless we foray into food chain, the floriculture will not get the kind of due recognition that it deserves. So as I mentioned, floriculture has the potential to improve almost all the or address almost all the ailments that we all face at one point of time in our lives. So if you consume these flowers as a floral man in this picture, one can be healthy, which will address some of the major ailments or some of the minor ailments which we face in day-to-day life. As we almost every time we say that fruits and vegetables are the important for nutritional security, but it is high time that we must also include the flower crops and the flowers in the food chain to expand this definition of providing the nutritional security to fruits, vegetables, and flowers. Thank you very much for your attention.
Dr. K.V. Prasad, you have taken us to the food part of the floriculture, which is very potential one. Now I request my colleague Dr. Rajan to just highlight the points of his talk for the benefit of the viewers.
Thank you, sir. Can you hear me, sir?
Yeah.
Yes,
I'm
sir, you're
audible?
audible.
Okay, okay. So we had a very, very unique talk by Dr. Prasad about the edible flowers and the edible part of the floriculture. Then what we had a historical background how the flowers were used in different types of cuisine, and the indigenous products also made like gulkand in Indian under Indian conditions. Then he has given a very unique, interesting description of the different cuisines of the world, particularly starting from the salads and garnishing the flowers, how those flowers are important. He has given great detail, but also cautioned that we should avoid the wild flowers. Many may be the poisonous one, and we may not be able to utilize them properly, safely. And some of the precautions, like using the animal-based manures, how those are related with the zoonotic diseases. These type of important points he has discussed, and he has also mentioned about the uh, medicinal properties of the hibiscus and many of the flowers which are there, particularly the use of flowers as topping in these cakes, and again the rich nutrient content of many of the nutrients like calcium, magnesium, iron, zinc, copper in different types of flowers. And another important aspect of the flowers, which are rich in antioxidants, the vitamins, and the famous rose hips for vitamin C. Then again, the homeopathic medicine base of calendula was described by him. Details and the description of the medicinal properties of these flowers were very well narrated. And the artificial coloring, that is the most important part where the flowers can be utilized, which are edible, and the combination of vegetables and fruits with flowers, that will be important, as he has already hinted. Then major pigments which are in most of the plant species which are being used, particularly for the flavonoids, then carotenoids, and inherent this medicinal properties which can be exploited, and several of the clinical trial evidences also were given by him. So a lot of scope is there, particularly for the utilization of these bioactive compounds with the flowers and the pigments which can be produced in vitro, as he has said that the working efforts by his team, the scientific efforts put for the isolation of the particularly callus production for the anthocyanin by in roses. Then what are the factors which are going to affect the anthocyanin? Then possibility of producing that callus with the colored callus from different uh, species from rose, chrysanthemum, petunias. Then selective production, how it can be, the pigments it can be manipulated, the medium composition modification, how it can give you a different type of compound, that he has very well narrated. The important area where these flowers are being used for value addition in the poultry products, that was also in one of the slides. And although we have the rich uh, sources of different polyphenols, carotenoids, anthocyanin, but many of the new pigments we can get from the flowers, that was indicated by him. Screening of jumplas, how that is going on, how they can select some of the genotypes, and he has already identified several of the genotypes which can be used for the value addition, which is a product like tea, aromatic tea from the flowers, that is coming up very well. So he talked a lot about the aromatic compounds also, and already banana, moringa, cucurbits, amaranthus, these flowers are being used in different dishes, cuisines, and but then pomegranate, hibiscus, chamomile tea are becoming more important now. So day by day, there this industry is developing, and the inclusion of the flowers in the food has been very well dealt and indicated by him. So at the end, his talk says that flowers are not only for beautifying the environment, but also improving the health and beauty of the human beings, particularly with their rich medicinal and cosmetic values. Thank you very much. We are grateful to Dr. Prasad for such an excellent talk, which was a new dimension, particularly for the people who are working on bioactive compounds and aromatic teas. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan, for nicely highlighting the points which Dr. Prasad has raised. Is there any question? Please run it. Tiku sir, a very informative talk, Dr. Prasad. Thanks. Are we now producing flower teas indigenously? I mostly see these, what is that, especially Eastern countries. In Eastern countries, such teas are available. Another question, you first answer this question, whether we have got the teas available as they are in the other countries.
Yeah, good morning, Dr. Tikku sir. Great to get the question from you. Yes, we do have floral teas which are being produced even in India, which are now available on Amazon and other e-portals. And the second question is that, the tons of flowers that are being offered at the temples, can't they be used for extracting beneficial compounds? Yes, they can be extracted in terms of the pigments and not for essential oils, because essential oils, they are highly volatile, and by the time they are harvested, processed, brought to the temples and then offered, and by the evening most of the volatiles they escape. And in some of the temples, for instance, in Tirumala Tirupati at Devasthanam, they have started an initiative with the technological backstopping given by YSR Horticulture University under the leadership of Dr. Janaki Ram. They are recycling these flowers into a number of value-added products. They are making the floral impressions or the images of Lord Venkateshwara and other deities of Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam temples. And now they are being given to almost all the VIPs who visit the temple. And they are also making a number of other value-added products, including agarbattis. After these flowers are removed after a particular worship process is over, and a huge what to say, self-help groups are created comprising of about 250 women participants. They have come together to recycle these flowers into many value-added products. And for your information, the famous Vinayaka temple in Mumbai, they are using the marigold uh, flowers that are offered to God. They are converting them into a paste and then using them in their laddus to color them as orange by replacing the synthetic color that is used. And there are a number of interventions like this that are happening across the world. An alumni of Kanpur IIT, he started a particular startup by name Fool in Kanpur, wherein they are collecting all these flowers from the temples and then they are converting them to agarbattis and dhoop sticks that they are even exporting to other countries. So there are possibilities are there, and then these possibilities are translated by commercially exploiting them. These and as part of like advocacy, we strongly recommend even the flower market that is coming up in Pune. We have requested them to develop as an integrated kind of a flower market, so that whatever the excess that comes into the market, we know what is the capacity of the market based on the previous day sales, and whatever it is left over or likely to be left over need to be directly processed, whether for essential oils or natural pigments, or if the quality is low or if it is 1 day old, that can be recycled into other value added products like agarbatti and dhoop sticks. And if it is very poor one, that can go into vermicompost. So these are the steps that we are trying to impress upon the local governments, so that farmers are not at loss in terms of in cases of glut in the market.
I think he has nicely answered both the questions. And I congratulate Dr. Tikku to raise such an important question because the lot of biomass you can't afford to waste it, which is going waste from temple. And the easiest way he has said, Dr. Prasad, producing the vermicompost. If nothing is there, at least you can produce a compost out of it instead of wasting it or throwing it just like that. But there are a lot many where the big temples are there and things are organized. You can easily just streamline the things what Dr. Prasad has covered in his talk. Uh, some more thing is there. Hello, can you display it again? Awareness about the importance and availability is lacking. Many new products prepared for flowers and today, what is that? Sudhakar
Yeah,
Pandey, could you kindly deal with him? I want to attend some question.
yeah, yeah. Thank you, Dr. Sudhakar Pandey, for your point that you have raised. Yes, awareness is lacking, no doubt about it. Because across the country, the if you look at the way the flowers are handled, it is very very disappointing and distressing that once you offer a bouquet to any person, it stays for few seconds in his hands, and no longer it is admired, or no longer it is like the due recognition that it deserves. See, having said so, the awareness about the utilization of these flowers for various purposes, what I have highlighted in my presentation, is certainly lacking. Uh, we, as a part of All India Coordinated Research Project on Floriculture, across 22 centers, we regularly organize training programs and awareness programs for the farmers and also the other stakeholders. Our endeavor is, in case of DFR, let me tell you that every year we organize crop-specific days or weeks, depending on the crop, during which we invite all our, the worthy stakeholders in terms of general public, the ICR sister organizations, the farmers, and also the traders, who are the major influencers of what to buy. So once a trader says that I want only white and yellow, the farmer produces and white and yellow color flowers, nothing else. Though there is a lot of diversity and lot of wealth that we have across all the research establishments. So our endeavor is to break this myth, and then that's why we bring them together. Even Dr. Tikku, who has just now raised a question, he came to our institute during one of those occasions to see, and then we showcase what we have, and then we encourage them to select those, the varieties or whatever the technologies that we have. So this is a continuous process. Yes, rightly said by you that awareness is lacking, and we are constantly trying to improve upon this particular knowledge. Even during the pandemic, we all know that the fruit and vegetables, they found their route to the dining tables, but not the flowers. Perhaps the floriculture sector is one of the most affected sector, which was beaten black and blue. Not only in India, across the world. Even major auction centers in Alzamir and all, they started special campaigns to to encourage the buyers, with the campaign that along with your tissue papers, please also purchase flowers. That was the campaign that they have started during the early part of the pandemic. So this particular sector, once what it was going through the stress, we conducted many number of online webinars and also the awareness programs, and also through our WhatsApp groups, we tried to encourage the farmers to convert them into such kind of value-added products to the extent it is possible. So we are doing on our part. So let us hope this awareness that what we are trying to bring in will bear fruits or the flowers sooner. Thank you.
Speaks of the interest people have got in flowers, not only seeing the beauty, but they want to see it as a part of the food chain, which the speaker in the beginning told that. And I'm sure, I'm confident that in near future, floriculture will become the part of food chain, not only the part of a food chain, but a very important part of a food chain. Perhaps without involving floriculture, the food won't move. The moment you start harvesting the flower colors and coloring the food, and doing the creating the awareness about the natural food colors and the others one, their advantages and disadvantages, people will prefer naturally the natural food colors, and without food colors the attraction for the food is not there. Plus, it's not the this outer beauty we are talking about, that the flowers are beautiful, but the floriculture contributes to the inner beauty. What is inner beauty? Inner beauty is the health, your good health. He has mentioned lot many things which are having, I think, a lot of potential, starting from antioxidant to protein and whatnot, different pigments, different minerals, the nutrient deficiency, the vitamin A and the iron rampant in the country. And 50% of the population, the women folk, they suffer with the iron deficiency. If somebody can take up this single issue, I think sky is the limit. From floriculture side also, they can contribute a lot. So what we wanted to stimulate the thinking of the viewers, that floriculture is not only for the beauty, it is for the food also, and not only for the, as I have said, the soothing to the eyes, but to your health also. They are good one. Have a good look, feel happy and healthy, and eat them to be healthy. Eat them. But not every flower, as he has clearly told you. And the simple formula, what is eatable, what is not eatable. If animal is not eating the particular flower, human being should also not touch that. That is your laboratory at your disposal.
Yes.
So one can do it. As sophisticated thing, you go to Dr. Prasad and others, they will let you know whether it is eatable or not, and what more can be accepted one, besides having that ether, what that aroma and essence, essential oil and whatnot. He talked number of things. They are there. They are very valuable and costly item out of floriculture. We should come up that we cover it under value addition or secondary, what should I say, horticulture or floriculture or secondary agriculture. That has to get, I think, boost. And the planners, if they agree with us what we have talked about, I think over that. Fantastic suggestion from Tiku, who has got a fertile brain. Start an edible bouquet movement, Dr. Prasad, and get a bouquet, take home and use it. But the lighter side of it, Dr. Tiku, the courier will eat away and disappear. That is the lighter side of it. Anyway, good one, good suggestion, good suggestion. So, in the end, I thank the speaker profusely for an excellent talk and stimulating, and I'm sure people have been benefited with that. Then I'm thankful to Dr. Rajan, who has nicely summarized that, moderated the talk, and highlight the importance. And I thank profusely Dr. Poppy Bora, who helped us today in our webinar, and hope she won't mind to help us in near future also, no, as and when need be. We are, madam, thankful to you. Nicely you you are with us, and later on we may think of adding some more role for you on that. So with these things, I thank one and all, particularly the Shivangi also. She has done excellent job, and for the next webinar, if she has got the flyer ready, she can display it. Yes, the next webinar is also on floriculture. the problems and suggested remedies for Leucanthus, very important in the filler plants, and future flowers. Future flower means future floriculture. So we will meet again on Sunday. Thank you so much giving us more than 1 hour. Hope you got something out of our talk. With these words, thanks once and all. We meet again.
Thank you, sir. Thank
Okay.
you for the opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Rajan, sir.